Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. This is Elizabeth Townsend-Gard, your host, and I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School and a faculty fellow at the A.B. Friedman School of Business at Tulane. And I just want to quilt. So today we talk to Mel Beach. She is one of the new Michael Miller brand ambassadors, with which we are as well. We talked to her about her quilting life and designing things and her goals, all kinds of things. It's super fun.
My name's Mel Beach, and I'm calling from San Jose, California.
Awesome. And tell me your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life.
Both of my grandparents did a lot of, grandmothers did needlework growing up, so they taught me needlepoint, cross-stitch, all that good stuff. I had an aunt that did quilting, and I always admired it from a distance. I was in high school at the time, and so she gave me one year for my birthday. She gave me a bundle of fabric and said, I'm going to teach you sometime, and unfortunately our schedules just never meshed, and I never learned from her.
Interesting. Now, were you growing up in San Jose? Have you always been in the area?
No,
Where were you?
In New York. I've only been in San Jose for just under 9 years now.
Interesting.
So.
Okay. Yeah. And so how did you get to sewing?
I did a little bit of home ec in high school. It was very watered down, and I was actually scared of the sewing machine at the time. I did my entire project by hand. Still got an A, so that was good. And it was my last year of grad school, actually.
What were you in grad school? What were you doing in grad school?
Administration and leadership.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So I had a stack of T-shirts from high school, camp, college that I was no longer wearing. And so I got the idea of making a T-shirt quilt. So I asked my mom, who is not a quilter really, kind of show me how to piece it together.
Right.
We kind of pieced it together, no stabilizer, no real quilting or batting. It was a bit of a hot mess, but I got the quilting bug. As soon as I finished it, I went out and got quilting cotton and haven't looked back since.
And that's so awesome. I think that's really cool. It's so interesting. Do you so there's this whole thing about we don't teach home ec, so we're not going to have sewers. I don't think I'm finding that. I think that home ec is sometimes really delays people in liking to sew. I mean, some people love it, but a lot of people just don't. Do you feel that do you think home ec needs to be in the schools to keep the sewing alive?
I don't think so much for the sewing side of things. I think there was a lot of different skills that you can learn in home ec about managing a household, a budget, cooking, planning recipes. So I think there are important skills there. Is it essential for sewing? Not necessarily, because here I am, however many years later, passionate about quilting and sewing.
Yeah, interesting. And then tell me a little bit about your journey. How would you I know how you, this is like a trick, this is like a fake question, right? Because I've already done a ton of research on you. But how would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as a professional or an enthusiast or a hobbyist or dabbler? And how do we understand this spectrum of putting us, I feel like the quilting industry does put us into categories, right? And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about who you are and how to understand this world.
I definitely started as an enthusiast, mostly self-taught as a quilter and playing along. I did most of my quilting by myself, learned from books and magazines, and then I moved to California where I joined a guild. There's a very vibrant quilting community here.
Yeah.
And I started getting more serious about it. I did some demos for my guild, as a volunteer basis, and really enjoyed it and decided to branch out and take it on as a professional. I'm a full-time teacher and artist, and that's what I do year-round, is going to mostly different guilds, some conferences, some quilt shops.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I consider myself a professional. This is what I do.
Because this is how you, and do you think that a professional is defined, is it economic being a professional? Is it that you make your money? What makes you a professional, I guess?
Certainly there's the economic, that this is my source of income. It's also the vast majority of what I do with my time. I wake up and I have a checklist of things I need to do for the business, whether it's preparing for a new class.
Right.
I'm actually teaching. I'm getting samples ready.
Yeah.
Everything is for the business, and it's the forefront of what I do.
And a professional, I think it's interesting because I am find myself in an interesting space because I'm such a hobbyist, but I'm doing it for my work. And then there's all this businessy part of it because of the podcast, right? So I've like turned into a semi-professional, I guess, in a weird way, which is a good experience. But it seems like a professional, like you, when you wake up, like if I'm an enthusiast or hobbyist, I wake up, even if I'm retired or I can quilt all day, I wake up and I say, what am I going to quilt today? But a professional wakes up and says, what do I have to do today? Which may or may not include quilting because it kind of squishes the quilting down less and less and less and less because of all the other obligations. Would you say that would be a good way to think about like a hobbyist enthusiast versus a professional or semi-professional?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A good day is when I actually get to spend in the studio on my machine. A lot of times it's very much computer work and behind the scenes stuff that people don't always get to see, but it's my business.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So
I was very reluctant to go into the business side. My family and friends have been encouraging me to do it for years. I was like, no, I don't want to turn. It was always my outlet for my other jobs. It was something I look forward to. I de-stressed.
Right.
I was very reluctant to turn it into my business because,
Right. So what were you doing before you went full-time with quilting?
In New York, I worked in higher education. I was in colleges, universities on the admin side.
On the admin side.
The student life side, I was, in terms of residential living, and so students that live on campus and the staffing, that's what I oversaw. When I moved to California, I did more nonprofit. I did Girl Scouts, and I worked in animal shelters.
Interesting. On the administration side.
Yes. Mostly.
That's interesting. So you are kind of handling the problems, the everyday strategies and problems. We'd be like, oh, we have to go talk to Mel. Right?
You got it. Yeah. Which has been, all those jobs kind of rolled up have really prepared me for this job. I was doing scheduling, I was doing training, and so a lot of that's really
it translates. Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
Do you think quilters are easier to deal with than college students? I think the quilting community is easier to deal with than the students. I mean, the students are great. Don't get me wrong. I love my students. But it's just, like, the pros and cons, like, administration versus,
Yes, quilters are far easier to handle and wrangle.
Totally.
My administrative role, I dealt with either the student leaders, which were really bright and brilliant, and then I also had to deal with the troublemakers, the ones that would find themselves into making not such wise decisions. And so I got the two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, me too.
Quilters, they're enthusiastic. They're there to learn something, to be inspired.
Right. And this is their choice. So this is the other thing, is that they're also older. This is like their time. So we're having this conference about like, what we do with our leisure time, like whether we watch movies or go to sports events. And we're doing quilting as well. And like, we choose to be here. We choose to play, and we're grown-ups. And we kind of leave all that ridiculousness aside. Like, this is not our time. This is our, like, get away from all of that awfulness. I mean, not everything's awful, but I'm just saying, like, this is our special space, our space. This is my time. And so I think that really changes the nature of the relationship because they get to come like, when you see them in the classroom, they're like, I get to be with Mel for the day. When I see my law students, they're like, oh, crap, she might call on me today, right? There's a very different, there's a different relationship,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Makes it cool.
Yes,
right?
Very, very fun. I look forward to teaching. That's the best days is when I'm in the workshop space and seeing students and quilters that are afraid of a certain skill, those light bulbs go off and like, I get this and I can do this and I can be successful, and they start running with it and making it their own, and that's really very rewarding.
Do you think, so I've been thinking about classes because I don't take a lot of quilting classes, and I think that's one of the next sort of experiences to do. And do you think when you're looking for a class, you should be looking at like, it seems like it's either I really want to take with this teacher because I think she's super cool or he's super cool, or I want to learn a skill, or I want to make that project. Do you think that that's kind of, like, how should we be thinking about classes and taking classes?
For a while, as I was taking classes, initially I was taking because I wanted to learn a technique. I wanted to add skills to my quilter's toolbox to kind of empower me and create whatever visions I have in my head. I now have tools to do it. And so sometimes I wasn't always excited about the project that we were doing, but I wanted to learn a specific technique. And so I would start it, learn the technique, maybe not finish the project that was being taught.
Yeah.
As I got more thinking about taking this on as a profession, I was signing up for quilters teachers that I really respected and admired in terms of, how are they teaching and how are they interfacing with students and how are they leading their classes. Again, not so much how are they teaching a specific technique, but how are they guiding that classroom and managing it. And so I was really taking notes from that side of things.
And is that when you knew you wanted to be a teacher? Is that when you started to look at sort of what do the good teachers do kind of thing?
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And now do you take classes ever? Do you ever find yourself in classes?
I do, occasionally. I think I've learned that I'm actually a bad student when I take these classes because I don't always make the project, or I kind of go rogue, and I'm always curious to see how will other teachers respond to that. In my classes, I encourage people to kind of make it their own and go their own direction.
Yeah.
I will kind of give them warnings if I see a potential danger ahead, like they're going a course that could be a potential failure, and I'll just mention that. But I encourage them to make it their own, and so I'm always curious to see how teachers respond when I'm going to try it this way, and some are a little skeptical, and then they really do embrace.
Do you feel like I feel like sometimes as quilters, we've been talking a lot about this, so sometimes teachers want you to be like what you're saying, make it your own, don't do what I'm doing, kind of experiment, kind of encouraging people in their creativity. But then other times it's just like I look at the quilt behind you, which is a very complicated, pretty awesome. I want to make that kind of quilt, and that's a puzzle, right? Is it paper pieced? Is that a paper piece thing?
This is actually pieced.
Oh my gosh!
A lot of precision.
That's craziness.
Yeah.
All right, it looks like a paper pieced, almost exploding, amazing star thing, right?
Could be, and that's why when I had a guild ask me, that's what they want to take. I said, ooh, this is kind of really challenging, requires a lot of precision. I offered an alternative using bias tape. And that's more doable in a one day, and people are much more successful.
So when you think about a pattern like that, super complicated, precise, then we're kind of puzzle makers, right? Like what we're trying to do is master our skill to be able to do the puzzle well, as opposed to our creativity going rogue, kind of like, oh, I'll just make this go this way. And I think that there's different, like if we recognize that in whatever project we're doing, like am I a puzzle maker here? Is it skill building, or is it kind of exploding my creativity? Or a mixture. It could be a mixture, but it seems like it's okay to be a puzzle maker is all I'm saying. And you could just be a puzzle maker. That's okay too. Like there's a lot of pressure, I think, on people to be creative, and sometimes people don't want to be creative. I just want to do that, right?
No, and that's what most of my classes I teach them is to choose your own adventure. I will present you with information. You can use the time however you want. If you want to recreate exactly what I've done, go for it. If you want to go a different direction, I encourage mistakes, because a lot of times mistakes lead to exciting design opportunities. We celebrate those.
Yeah.
So, I have fun.
And then what do you think about, so let's say I made the quilt behind you, and then I want to put it in a show. Are you okay with me putting it, and what level show are you okay with me putting into? Like my local show?
I encourage students that are taking my class to show their work and enter it into whether it's their local guild show, a county fair. I do hope that they give some kind of credit in their artist statement. This was started in a workshop taught by Mel, just because I don't know if they would have done it otherwise, and that's good exposure for me, and hopefully gets my foot in the door for other places. If they go totally rogue and they maybe just use a small nugget, again, I think it's just a common courtesy to
it's kind of right of attribution is. It's part of a healthy community. It's that, and also you can, like, I suspect that if you did a work that was inspired by someone, that you would have that as part of your artist statement. It isn't that like, oh, well, you take Mel's class and you have to do an artist statement because Mel is a prima donna. No, that's not what it is. It's really that, well, Mel has an artist statement that says, well, it was based on so-and-so or on this classic thing. And that gives us a kind of continuity of, like, who we are. So I think that it's really important. Do you agree? I mean, it's part of our, it's just part of who we are as quilters in some way, right?
I think of quilting as like a sisterhood. I know there's males involved, and I'm not trying to exclude them, but it's a sisterhood, and we all build upon each other's successes, and so it's given that credit. And in my blog, everywhere else, if I started a particular quilt in somebody's class, I always give them a shout out, even if just giving me the color sense. I always want to give credit where it's due.
I totally love it. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about being a Michael Miller brand ambassador and also other brand ambassadors. So you're also Aurifil. Are you a brand ambassador for Aurifil?
Aurifil Artisan.
An Aurifil Artisan. All right. So tell me about these things and what they are and how they fit into your scheme or your world.
Sure. I'll start with the Aurifil Artisan because I've been doing it for 2 years. So I have a little bit more experience there. And Aurifil's been a wonderful company to partner with. And I really do think of it as partnership.
Yeah, why?
They support me in my teaching side of things. And so each year I email them all my upcoming classes and workshops, and they actually send me thread to give to my students.
That's really great.
Let them experience. And so that's been really wonderful that they support me as an artist as well as a teacher.
That's really great.
I love their products, as you can see behind me.
Yeah.
I've had great success. They've been a big part of my success.
So then you need to be you need to be good at planning. Because you have to.
Well, yeah. That's general for all teaching. Yeah, you definitely have to be a planner. And so I look at my upcoming calendar and say, okay, here's all the workshops I'm teaching, what kind of threads I generally use, and the general numbers. And they've been very supportive of that.
That's really great. And that gets their product to people that may not see it. So it's good for them, too. It's not, right, that's a good relationship.
Different weights, everybody's familiar with their 50 weights.
Yeah.
So one of my classes, we use the monofilament, which people have never tried before. And, monofilament, the clear stuff gets sometimes a bad rap for breaking and being difficult. And they get it in their hand, they don't have to commit to buying it, and they say, wow, this is a great product. I can use it in a variety of ways. I can put iron on it. I can use it in my machine and be successful.
Yeah. Let me ask you a real quick question on thread because I'm always curious. So when you piece, do you have a particular weight or thread that you use for piecing?
Generally, Aurifil 50 weight for piecing.
And in your bobbin?
50 weight.
50
usually
weight.
Matching, so it helps kind of mitigate tension issues.
Yeah. And then do you do, I can't remember because I'm a little chaotic today, free motion quilting or long arm to finish? How do you finish your quilts?
Mostly free motion, occasionally walking foot, and it's all on a domestic machine. And I was initially doing 50 weight because it blended in, it disguised kind of my wobbles and bobbles. And now as I'm getting more confident, I'm playing more with 40 weight, 28 weight, and even 12 weight.
Really?
So hoping to show,
So interesting. And then do you, what about the bobbin when you're doing that? What are you putting in your bobbin?
I'm still using 50 weight in the bobbin, and that way it just helps a
Now, are
little bit.
you matching the thread? So if you're doing a 12 weight or 28 weight, it's the same color in the bobbin?
As close as I can get to it, yes.
Yeah. So that's a lot, but you've got a lot of threads because that's the other, right. And then do you worry, so here, I'm the biggest stress I have right now, not really the biggest stress. This is a little stress, actually, is I don't really like if I'm changing colors on the free motion quilting, then the back looks kind of gross because it's like the colors, like the black, the back is one color and it just looks like messy to me. Do you feel that way or should I just get over it? You know what I mean?
As I'm getting more and more comfortable with quilting, I'm doing more and more solids on my quilt backs. And so when I do all the thread changes,
it looks cool.
Quilt in the back, so it's actually kind of a cool effect.
Okay, I'll try that. So you think having a solid back, like a solid color fabric, then you get the pattern of whatever you're doing on the front, and it's not so weird.
It's like a two-fur quilt, yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay, I'll try that. Do you use a lot of solids in your quilting?
I'm starting to now. As I'm getting more comfortable with quilting, I want the quilting to be seen, and so I'm doing more and more solids. That's why I'm really excited about partnering with Michael Miller because
their solids
I
are great.
Cotton coutures. They're gorgeous.
They are great.
Behind me,
yeah,
they're soft. They're brilliant colors.
Yeah,
they just work beautifully.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. I like Mike. We're both brand ambassadors this year. What made you think about being a brand ambassador, and sort of what do you think that being a brand ambassador is for Michael Miller?
So why I did it is I've done a number of the Michael Miller challenges through the Modern Quilt Guild, and they've been some of my more successful pieces that have traveled, gone all over the country, and so I really like them. They show up beautifully, they perform well, And so when they did the call, I was really excited. I was like, this is an amazing opportunity to work with a company that I really respect and I like their product. And so I don't endorse products unless I've used them and I've had good success with them.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited about this new partnership. It's still in its,
it just started. Right, it just started. So what do you think you'll be doing? I think each of us are doing different things with our brand ambassadorship. So tell me what you think you're doing with yours. And then my other question is, does it make you feel like you can't use other people's fabric for the year?
Great question. What I plan on doing is I do a lot of the quilt challenges. And so I see working with their new lines of fabric as ongoing challenges that I get to incorporate and create original designs showcasing their fabric. So I'm excited about that. I'm also hoping to do some maybe free motion quilting on their cotton coutures and do some samples and some different motifs that are, are my favorites. And so it's kind of new and exciting. And in terms of working with other fabrics, again, I read over the contract if that was I love all fabric. I have quite a stash, and so that's not part of the contract that we can't use other fabric.
It wasn't. It was not exclusive. It was a non-exclusive ambassadorship, which I thought was really interesting.
Yep.
And that we have to do a certain number of projects with their stuff, and we're featured, and we have to, that's just a little bit of, but it's non-exclusive, which I thought was really, really good because there's a lot of fabric out there, as you said. And I think also that we don't use fabric in isolation, I don't think. So, I mean, you can put a bunch of fabric together and like the fact that you're using the solids or the dots or whatever, it just adds to it. So to say like, you can mix this with all kinds of things.
They're really, especially their basics collection, they're super versatile. Whether it's their solids, their polka dots, they play nicely with a lot of other collections and other fabrics.
They do.
So hopefully we'll have a chance to showcase.
Now, when you're in the classroom, will you be asking them for sample materials for the classroom, or sort of would that be kind of like, what do you see that, like, how much is too much to ask for, I guess? You know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts about?
See. It might be maybe for the bigger shows that I do, potentially, if that's something they want to get their foot in the door. It's kind of a feeling my way out. I also do a lot of service. And so, when I work with Orfil, I asked them, here's a program that I volunteer with that's very near and dear to my heart. We teach survivors of domestic violence how to quilt.
That's so cool.
Weekly get together. They're a support group in many ways.
Yeah.
And we have sewing machines there. We teach them to sew, and it's very empowering for this mostly group of women, and some of their teenagers come as well.
That's really cool.
And Orfil donated heaps of thread for them to be successful and to use in their
That's really
projects.
great. So Michael Miller might do that too. And we see that with other companies. That's part of we have a very generous community. It's really remarkable. We're going to be doing, can you send me an email, because we're going to try to highlight different charities and different groups in the summer. And so I would love to do that. Also, we got a donation of fabric actually from Jaftex to work its baby fabric. And so we're trying to think about how to use this fabric to highlight the groups and then have groups use the fabric, or I don't know, we haven't figured it out yet. But the idea is sort of to highlight charities and other groups to sort of get a breadth of what's happening. And I would love to include your group. It would be really awesome.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So living in San Jose, you said it was a vibrant community, which is so interesting and awesome. And I grew up there, but it wasn't that. I mean, I was a kid, so it could have been vibrant, and I wouldn't know because I was just a kid. Tell me a little bit about, so what makes a vibrant community? Do you think it's because the museum's there? Do you think because it's economically strong? Like, what is it, what makes a vibrant, because we also see it in Oakland has a vibrant community right now, Berkeley, other spaces, and I'm really curious, like, what makes it, why is it vibrant? And I'm not, and New York doesn't, right? New York's not like, I mean, New York City has like Gotham Quilts and Victoria Finlay Wolf, and that's pretty much it in Manhattan. Too expensive, super busy, you need a lot of space to quilt. Like, it's not quilt friendly if you're in Manhattan, right? So tell me.
Yeah, I grew up in more upstate New York, and when I was doing quilting, I didn't know about the quilting community necessarily. I was very independent, and I think I had the stereotype about what a quilt guild is, and very much wrong. And so here in San Jose, we've got quite a few quilt guilds and large guilds as well. My main quilt guild, Santa Clara Valley, they have almost 500 members.
That's
and
amazing.
So it's intimidating at first when you're a brand new member.
Yeah.
But to have their support, their encouragement, the fact that our monthly meetings, we can bring in huge names to our guild and be inspired and take workshops. That's a huge thing.
Right.
We've got a number of big quilt shows, like Pacific International Quilt Festival is in our backyard every October. And so again, that was my first national quilt show I'd ever been to. I'd been to some of the local guilds in New York.
Yeah.
I could usually figure out how those quilts are made. And when I went to my first PIQF, I went home in tears because these quilts were so amazing.
That's interesting. That you were just kind of overwhelmed and thought, like, I could never do that. It was disheartening.
I was like, oh my God, I had no idea how these quilts are being constructed and designed.
Interesting.
And I joined my guild. I took classes through the shop, through the guild. Not that I was doing everything wrong, but there was easier ways of doing things and getting better results.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years after that first show that I submitted something to PIQF and got juried in. So I was like, oh, okay, making progress.
That's really cool.
So,
no, that's really cool. I love that. That's great. And then the museum is there, right?
Yeah,
so tell us about the museum.
San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles. It was actually founded by my guild, Santa Clara Valley, many years ago.
Do you know when it started? When did the museum start? Do we know?
That's a great question. Let me look it up. They celebrated a big anniversary recently. Last year was one of their big anniversaries. I can't remember what the number was.
Okay, let me take a look. Because we're very hard-hitting journalists. It does not say. Oh, 40 years ago.
That's what I was going to say. Our guild's about 40 plus years old, and we started it pretty early on. Our founders did. And so that's wonderful having an
1977. Wow. Santa Clara Valley Quilt Association first opened the American Museum of Quilts and Related Arts in a storefront in Los Altos. Mm-hmm. The museum since operated in a shopping center in Saratoga. Weird. An old San Jose Spanish colonial home, several leased storefronts, and now isn't it downtown? Is it downtown?
Correct, off of First Street. And they've been here for a number of years.
And 18,000 visitors annually, and 5,000 students, K through 12 students and their families. Right, 520 South First Street. So interesting.
And they've got wonderful exhibits that come, from Quilt National, which is like the best of the best. We've had Quilt Nihon, amazing, spectacular quilts from the Japanese quilting community that are just, uber precise and just stunning.
So interesting. And right now they're doing a textile art, international textile art thing. So interesting. What do you think in terms of, for people who don't understand sort of what San Jose is at this point, is San Jose was like a little farming weirdo community that off the map kind of had an inferiority complex to San Francisco for a long time, right? Like most of my family was in San Francisco and Marin, and we lived in San Jose, and that was like, well, you're in the San Jose people, right? But then it all shifted, and then, Silicon Valley and computers and the whole valley, like, it became more expensive to live there, and there was a huge boom, and like the whole world changed there in this hugely dramatic way after we left. And so it's weird. I mean, I think it's got both of those, right? It's got that kind of sweet, charming kind of, we used to have orchards here, and now we're super high tech. How does that, do you think, impact on sort of who you guys are as quilters? Because you do live in the middle of everything in this weird way, right?
It's had a huge impact on the art community in general. I mean, just because of the cost of living has just skyrocketed. To keep up. I mean,
hugely. I mean, insane. Like, people don't know. It's really insane. And huge, long commutes. It's just really crazy. But also a lot of influx of money into things as well.
Correct.
Right?
Into some things. And so, a lot of the programs I go to, it's the focus on technology and software and programming.
Interesting.
And, there is a vibrant arts community, but in many ways, a lot of the artists are moving out of the area because we can't afford cost of living, let alone studio space.
Right.
So that's been hard. how do we cope with that? And so the arts community has really responded to do some workshops on finances for artists and, grant writing and all that information that we need to be successful. The San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles has definitely been part of that. They did a wonderful program a few months ago on just taxes for artists and just, being knowledgeable and, again,
very interesting,
having that resource. So we're trying to band together and keep arts alive.
Yeah. Do you do much on copyright and trademark and those sorts of, like the legal side of it? Do you have much resources for that?
I'm sure there will be at some point.
Yeah.
Right now they're focused on the finance side
great.
of things.
We should chat more because we're creating, our goal is really to create these workshops or workbooks that people like you could then conduct because I can't fly, so traveling is a bit challenging. Like I can't fly, so that changes like the whole world. And so the idea is to have resources for people that they can do on their own, but that also people can learn from us, and then you can have it in your repertoire of things that you teach to get it out there in terms of not just copyright, because copyright is important, but trademark I think is super, super duper important for people, particularly in a hashtag world. And so I think thinking through who you are as a brand on the legal side is super important. So that's what we're working on with the students and at Tulane as part of this project, which I think goes beyond quilting. I think it's true for any small business owner or artists or even hobbyists, because they suddenly want to start they're going to move into, if they keep moving forward, you have to like think about your branding early. Yes. So I don't know, that's kind of, so I'm really psyched that they're doing like financial stuff. That's really interesting because I think that is really, really important. Okay. We're so going to run out of time. We're not reasonable at all. All right. Threads of Resistance. You were part of Threads of Resistance. Is that right?
I had a quilt juried into that exhibit, which was a huge honor. So yes.
Interesting. And did you feel like, tell me a little bit about, so Threads of Resistance was in response to the election, and it happened fast, and we've interviewed Sue Bleiweiss about it. And we've also Pam Weeks, where it was at New England Quilt Museum. So we've talked a lot about on different levels. But in terms of someone putting a piece in, I'm really curious. Did you just like make something and then just send it in? Like, is there kind of, when you're doing something like that it was fast, it was political? Had you done political things before? And sort of what was your experience about this?
Right at the time of the election was going on, I made my first political quilt. I was feeling very frustrated with just the society and just some of the ugliness I was seeing amongst the candidates, amongst the voters. And so I did my first scrappy quilt where I took bits of fabric that I exchanged with quilters all over the country and put them into a giant peace sign. And I was trying to channel more of the positive, see the good in our community. And so that was my peace of mind quilt, and in the background I stitched all these positive words: respect, love, compassion.
Nice.
And so that was a really positive outlet for me. And so when this new exhibit, opportunity came available, it was a way for me to communicate and share some of my concerns with the global world and just some of the current administrative policies I was seeing in development. And so I really wanted to talk about the budgetary impact that I was seeing in terms of some of the decision making, and Trump administration wanting to build a wall versus support programs that really make America truly great. And so I wanted to incorporate dollar bills into my quilts.
Right. And so your piece is called Resistance, but the S's are dollar signs and the C is a cent sign. Is that right?
Got it.
And then it's dollar bills. It's like a wall of dollar bills with other things in it. Is that with a heart?
Yeah, origami shapes to kind of represent different programs that I see as being a better impact on the United States.
Interesting.
And so I had to go through the logistics of how do you incorporate U.S. currency.
Right. Because you got the back and the front. So the back is the wall and the front is the heart.
You got it.
And
you're not allowed to perforate holes and destroy currency. And I even emailed the Treasury Department, said, I'm an artist. I'm looking to work with just $60 bills. And we'd like permission to stitch through them. And I got an immediate response. This is the law. This is the fines you can face.
Right,
and
you can't stitch through dollar bills. Is that what they said?
Yeah, you can't perforate, you can't tear, you can't destroy, basically deface.
Now, because they're $1 bills, right? So did you actually use $1 bills in your thing?
Those are actual $1 bills.
So what did you glue them?
They are carefully taped onto the quilt, and then I covered the whole quilt with tulle netting and stitched around. I created a basket.
So you could, how cool. So we had this flag controversy because someone Tara Miller cut up a flag and then posted it on 4th of July. Couldn't be more controversial. And then she was like, but it's pretty, right? So it was like, it was a mess. Anyway, so you followed the law. You did not perforate them.
Not intentionally. There might be one perforation, but I did comply.
They're full.
Again, I wanted to be able to.
So the ones that are wrapped around, are they just on the back? Is that what you did? You wrapped them around the back?
They are
folded?
The ones that are folded, they're origami. Different origami shapes.
Oh, wait. Oh my gosh. I finally got what you were saying. Okay, that's totally insane. Okay, so you built a wall of dollar bills. You did not sew through them. So you tape them on. You put the tulle so that they have little spaces so that they stay in place.
Yes.
Okay, you're completely insane. And then you did origami for the pluses and the music and the signs, and you had to figure out how to do origami without cutting the dollar bills because you didn't want to break the law.
I did not want to go to prison for.
Oh, because that would be just totally weird. You're like, why are you here? Like origami dollar bills stuff, right?
So there were some wonderful books I found in the library on dollar bill origami.
Really? It's like a thing, dollar bill origami?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's totally weird. All right, so when you do your taxes, you get to put down, you have dollar bill origami books?
I have a receipt of how many dollar bills I have for my finances. Yeah.
See, I love our world.
And one of the first stops that exhibit came to was at Pacific International Quilt Festival.
No way. So you got to see it in your home.
It was
that's really cool.
After, it was at the New England Quilt Museum. So
that's so cool. Right, that's where it started, was New England Quilt Museum. And how big is this quilt? It's got to be big-ish.
Oh, gosh. It's maybe 2 feet by not even 3 feet. So it's a wall hanging.
Yeah, it's a wall hanging. And it's got like it's really cool. So what are the words? So it's got the wall, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff on the wall, all origami dollars, which is totally insane. It's totally insane. That's like, how did you even think of that? That's craziness, right?
I was, again, dollar finances seems to be
money. What we should be doing with our money. Should we be building a wall, or should we be doing other art and flowers and peace and Christmas trees? Is that a Christmas tree?
Just the environment.
And there's a fish and a house.
Yeah, for veterans, affordable housing. So I really try to look at some of the policies and programs that were at risk of being cut.
Did the origami books teach you how to make some of these things, or did you have to take the techniques and make your own ideas about origami?
A little column A, a little column B.
Yeah.
Some of them I had to fudge, like there's one that's a uterus, so I think I ended up making a cow shape to form a uterus about women's reproductive rights.
Oh, it's like a cow head, but it's uterus, right? Is that what you did?
It's the closest
Clever.
I could find.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. I see it. Yeah, that's cool. Right, because you've got the dress and the girl, the signal for a woman, and then a cow head, but that's the uterus. Is that what you're saying? Cool. All right, I just totally love it. Okay, so what about the around the heart is wording, but I can't read the wording. What does it say?
It's a Theodore Roosevelt quilt about
nice.
What it means to whether or not, and I can't remember the exact quote, but supporting our politicians. It doesn't mean we blindly follow them.
Yeah.
They have to be representing us and
our values and what we care about. Okay, I totally love it. Okay, you totally made my day. I so want to now do origami dollar bill stuff. It's so great. Is it hard?
Well, it's tricky. You have to watch actual videos or books that have used actual $1 bills. If they use fake dollar bills, like they have like these little fake cards that don't have all the markings, it's really tricky to see exactly where they're folded. I learned so much my mother was in town visiting as this was coming up, and so she was helping me make some of these pieces and fold them and learn some of them, because it's a whole
and you use the markings on the dollar bill to help you figure out where to fold?
Yes.
Okay, that's so insanely cool. Okay, that's really okay. There's always something unexpected. Okay. Okay, so we are getting close to, we've so blown our time thing. Okay, so what I think is really funny and lovely is that you put your goals for a year on your blog and then like the highlights of what happened for the year. And so when I was going through this, I was like, well, how do they tell me about your goal making. How much is it stressful to try to meet those goals? Do they change? And then the highlights. So tell me about that part of your life.
So I've been blogging for maybe 8 or 9 years. And when I first started, I was a fairly new quilter. And so what I did each January 1st is develop 5 quilting related New Year's resolutions. It was skills or experiences I wanted to take on that were outside of my comfort zone. So it's how I learned how to free motion quilt. It's how I pushed myself to enter my first quilt show. Things like that. Finally joined, and as I got more and more invested into the field, they started becoming more professional focuses, join the circuit, grow my business, learn the technology side of things.
Right. Okay. So 2018, I'm on your 2018 New Year's resolutions. Number 1, teach and inspire. Mm-hmm. Number 2, create more meaningful quilts. Meaning that meaningful in what sense? In the sense of
some of them were more political quilts, kind of responding to some of our society, what's going on in society.
Yeah.
Some of it's making more quilts that are show worthy for some of the bigger shows.
Right.
So there's a variety of different ways.
And does the more meaningful also do the charity quilts? Is that more meaningful, or is it more meaningful in terms of so being more intentional and figuring out be more intentional with my online presence and use of social media, everybody. UFO management. Oh, yes. That's totally...
That's been about a 5-year New Year's resolution.
Oh, my gosh. So true. So true. Invest in my own creative development. Okay, so those were your 5 things. Then, what I totally love is where'd it go? Is how'd you do? So that's the part that's so interesting. Highlights from 2018. So how did last year? Okay, you are a maniac because you finished 75 quilts last year.
A lot of them are on the smaller side. Again, I do a lot of these 1-week challenges.
Yeah.
And so there's only so much time. So a lot of them are small, but they are start to finish.
And you're doing samples for your workshop. Is that included in the 75? The samples and other things?
There are quite a few that are samples.
Yeah. Okay. But you also did fancy quilts that went into challenges and won awards and all that stuff.
So it's a variety. And I usually make 2 or 3 bigger size quilts a year. So it's not like they're all small.
You entered how many shows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? 8 shows? 8 shows? 8 shows.
So the highlights are kind of bonuses, things that I wasn't necessarily planning for. The goals are things I'm very intentional. I check back in every few months to see how am I doing with these goals. Am I on track for finishing them?
Yeah.
Whereas the highlights are things I wasn't necessarily planning for. As a professional, I have goals, but I'm always open to new opportunities that I may not be able to anticipate at January 1st.
Got it. So this year, so first of all, it's different. Your highlight is different from your 5 things you were doing. Did you feel like you did all 5 things?
I did, actually. I was very successful. I exceeded my UFO resolution. I was really proud of the output of quilts, not just quantity, but the quality and the meaning behind my quilts. Teaching, my teaching career has definitely expanded, and I've been able to empower.
And then do you feel like, it's really interesting. And how much are you focused on social media and putting out what you're doing?
I'm getting better about it.
Yeah.
I was a very slow adopter to Facebook and even Instagram, and I'm trying to use them to my benefit. I'm especially enjoying, I love teaching free motion quilting, and people are very nervous about it. And so whenever I'm working on a project, if it's kind of a fun little motif, I set up my little tripod and I'll do a 1-minute clip of me doing a free motion design.
That's
so I've
very
really
cool.
enjoyed that. And
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And you're just doing it on your phone kind of thing and just posting it to Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Yeah. That's totally great. That's good. Yeah. Okay, so let's see what you're doing for 2019. Okay. Prioritize work-life balance. Okay, yeah, I could. So I'm trying to see if I should just adopt your 5 things for the year. Okay, so yeah. So this means more in the studio time, more focus on self-care, and recognizing my limits. Oh my gosh, that is so true, right? Yeah. It's just too much. There's too much. Do you feel that way?
I do. Last year's teaching load was wonderful, but again, for every day you're teaching, it's usually another 2 or 3 days of prep work, packing, all that stuff. So
and people don't really understand that in terms of the fee that they're like, well, why do you cost this much to be here and you're only here 3 hours or 5 hours? You're like, no. Like this took 10 years of my career to get to this point, plus all the time to just prep your class. Like the prep time is a lot. So. And when you're starting to teach, it's even more. So, it gets easier, but there's still prep. There's always prep.
I'm always refining my classes. Each time I teach, even if it's when I've been teaching for all 3.5 years I've been teaching, I'm constantly tweaking and updating and making it better. Yeah,
it's just part of the teaching process that happens with all teachers. It's hard to just walk in and just do the class. That's not really what happens. You keep thinking, well, maybe I should do it this way a little bit more or whatever. Like, we're always tinkering. Okay. Work-life balance. Yeah, I'm trying to do that too. Last night I was really proud of myself because we got the long arm. We have the long arm, and we just got a computerized part of it to experiment with that, which is super great, and it wasn't working. And I was trying to figure it out, and it was really frustrating, and I was getting really irritated. And then everyone was like, hey, you guys want to go for ice cream? And I'm like, you know what? Yes, because of work-life balance means we go out for ice cream and we're going to just go to ice cream. So putting things away and just going and that's important. Just stopping all the nonsense because you can fill your whole day up with work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have to-do lists every day and I try to get through a good chunk of it. But at some point I have to take care of myself, getting out and walking around the neighborhood.
Right. Totally. Right. Exactly. Okay. Mix it up. Having more studio times will hopefully mean more creative play, using precious fabrics, adding layers of interest, working in the abstract, and let's focus on deadline-driven work. Totally. So how's that going?
Good. I've been using several of my precious materials this year, including my own hand-dyed fabrics, so that's really good.
Yeah. What does precious fabrics mean to you?
I have these stashes of fabric that are they're special. I don't know if I can replace them, or I don't know if I'm necessarily, I would hate to waste them. Yeah. Silk fabrics, my own hand-dyed fabrics, little curated bundles that I've been hoarding. Yeah. And so I'm trying to use some of those fabrics in my projects, not just pet them.
Okay. Expand my teaching reach. Connect with more quilters through larger multi-day venues. So just expanding your business and doing other things. And that's helping with I like Mike and all that, all of that brand ambassador stuff. It's pushing you in bigger spaces.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Launch new content, new lectures and workshops, and blog and digital content. How important do you think digital content is? And what is the purpose of it, do you think? Is it to drive it to your teaching?
Yeah, it gives them. It gives other guilds and other guild reps or conferences a preview of what my teaching style is.
Right, so they can know who you are. Right.
This is what she can do in a 60-second clip. What can she do in a 6-hour workshop?
It's so funny because there's a church here that my kid goes to the camp there, and we were like, we're not very churchy people. There's a whole bunch of reasons why we're not churchy people, but we're thinking of going to this church, and you can look online at the videos, their YouTube videos. So I thought that was interesting. We could preview the church. You could preview everything on YouTube, whether it's a teacher or a church or a sewing machine. Okay.
And part of it is I can only travel so many days a year. So if I can expand my reach, and at some point I'd love to be able to teach completely online or partially.
Oh, and have that as a revenue stream, the online content. Do you know how you're going to do that? Are you going to use a particular platform, or you don't know yet?
Research. I'm a member of Craft Industry Alliance, and they've had some wonderful webinars and articles that have given opportunities.
Think
so
about
it's
that.
something
Yeah.
that's in my radar.
All right, cool. Develop product line. I often ask whether my quilts, hand-dyed fabrics, or favorite tools are available for purchase, and I want to start saying yes. So again, thinking through how to monetize the stuff that you like to use, whether that's through a affiliate links program, I would imagine, or kits, or having your own shop. And I guess that's the balance of then the obligation of shipping things out, right?
Yes. Well, shipping things out, or when I travel, mostly when I travel, most of the guilds will give you an extra table to have a little boutique where you can sell.
Oh, that's cool. And you haven't done that yet. So the idea is to have that as a thing.
Yeah. When people are like, oh, you have anything to sell? I'm like, yeah, I'm selling myself right now. My services.
Right. So you're losing out on revenue because people were, right. So like Cheryl Sloboda is coming to teach us a hand quilting class, and she's going to bring all her stuff so people could buy it. Right. So that is, so that you wouldn't necessarily, you might have an online shop, but really it's more for the teaching opportunity, all of that. And then would you think you would have would you talk with Orifil about being able to sell some of the thread in there and other things like that?
I mean, there's a handful of products that I use in more than half my workshops, and when I bring a few extras,
they want it.
It's more
right.
of me. It's a service. Yes, I can
right.
make money off of it,
but it's just like convenience, and then they can go home with whatever they can buy it right there and then and there. You're missing it. There's a kind of a friction to them being able to then go buy it. But if you just have it there, it'll be less. It'll be reasonable.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Number 5. That's all good. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to come back later next year and see how it went. But I think maybe I'll have to figure out what my art. My school, I think I'm still on the school year thing. So I feel like the July 1st is the new year, not, I'm still on that. So, because the budget's on that thing, remember that whole, the budget ends in July. Yeah. You have to use up your budget, or you're running out of money or whatever. Money starts again in July 1st. So maybe I'll do mine as the July New Year's rather.
There you go.
The beginning of the year just always seems too stressful to start thinking about. I'm not in the mindset to start new stuff then,
See, for me, December is usually a quiet time for teaching. Most guilds are doing holiday parties.
Yeah.
So December is really exciting for me because I can really reflect on my previous year, scramble
nice.
if there's any.
Right, you can kind of get things going and all that. Yeah.
But a lot of it's thinking ahead to the next year and what kind of experiences, what kind of goals do I want to set. So a lot of that takes place in December.
So interesting. Now, I have one more question after this, but do you go to market? Do you do any of the...
I have not been to market yet. I don't sell patterns. I'm not selling, I don't have a book or anything at this time.
Yeah.
So, no. I went to Houston Quilt Festival for my first time this past fall.
Oh, you did? We were there?
It was amazing, overwhelming. I had 2 quilts in the show.
Oh, that's so cool.
I have to go. This is a good reason, and I loved it. So.
That's so cool. We had a booth there for the first time.
Oh.
It nearly did me in. There was a lot. There was just a lot. We're trying to. It was fun, but I didn't realize how much it would. How it's a lot. It's just a lot. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, I'm super psyched about this. Now, any intellectual property issues or other things that come up for you in your daily existence, and also you don't have patterns. So, what are you doing in your classes?
I do have handouts, and that always gets a bit, sticky in terms of that balance between. I want to give them enough information to empower my students, but not so much that they can just photocopy it and give it to people that haven't come to my workshop.
Right.
And so I encourage people to take photographs for their own personal reference of all my quilts, my samples. But again, it's kind of my bread and butter, and so I want to,
Do you think that you'll develop those into patterns or things that they have to purchase? Do you think that will happen?
I'm hoping some of them could be launched into books at some point. I think would be wonderful, whether it's self-published, to be determined. And so handouts are certainly my big part of my intellectual property.
Right.
And my presentation.
And do you put copyright notices on them, or do not distribute, or any of those things?
Hand them out. I said these are for your personal use.
Yeah. If you send us, will you send us a copy of them so we can take a look at what you're doing? We'd love to sort of see. And because it's an unpublished thing, it's a little bit different. Do you ever register any of that? You don't register them at the Copyright Office, do you?
I haven't, because I'm constantly tweaking them.
Yeah.
And so it's like version
and
one.
Why? How helpful is that? And you're not going to necessarily sue people, but you also feel like they're not You don't want them to be redistributed. They're for their personal use. It's classroom materials. Yeah, I would love send me whatever you want to send me. I'm really curious of how it looks and what you put on it.
And then my slides. So, most guilds, when you go visit them, you do a lecture, show at the guild meetings. And I put a lot of planning and I do multimedia. I do some slides, and then I bring a number of quilts. Yeah. And I've had people sit in the audience taking a picture of every single slide. And
really? That's not cool.
You don't
it
know
feels
like
they're taking your intellectual property. So then, right. And do they ever ask you to post, like, can you post? I get that all the time. Can you post? Do you mind if we post this whole thing or whatever? Do they record do you tell them no recording of the presentation?
That's why I'm trying to figure out how to. We've had that happen in our guild where we've had people record and videotape, and it makes the presenter very uncomfortable.
Do you have... Yeah, it's really not cool. Can you send me also like an example of your engagement letter or your contract for teaching? We're doing a whole thing. We started with Cheryl Sloboda's, but now we're like way into it. Our class has gotten massively into it. So we're trying to do a model contract for teachers and artists that are presenting stuff. So we're now love to get a sample of that. And I would love if you have a sample of what Santa Clara, your Quilt Guild is doing in terms of those engagement things. If they're sending... like what they're doing, if the guilds themselves have them, or who has the contract. So we're wondering if teachers always do the contract, or if the guilds, if they're sophisticated, have their contract. Do you know how that works in your guild?
Many of the established guilds have their own contract, and I'm usually happy to sign that, especially when I'm first starting out. Within a year, I developed my own. Some of the modern quilt guilds were fairly new, and they didn't have their own. And so I'm willing to sign theirs. Or I also provide a copy of mine, as long as all those same checklists are covered in their contract.
I would love it. So the idea is to gather as many of these as possible, and over the next few weeks or summer, because we take, because we're slow, we're law school, to really look at them, and then also be able to do a model checklist and sample one, so that if you're a new teacher, or if you want to sort of look at our model to see how much of your stuff's in there, and then just have that up for people to use. So that's kind of one of our things we're thinking about.
Pictures of my quilts. I always tell you, you're welcome.
And the hashtags, you want them to know which hashtags to use.
Tag me, include my references. But, it just feels weird when they're taking pictures of all my slides. And there's one or two that have, I do one on quilt challenges. And I talk about where you can find quilt challenges. And I've had guilds say, hey, could you send me that one slide? We'll publish on our newsletter. I'm totally fine with sending you one slide, but the whole thing kind of feels weird.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, this is so fun. This is so cool. All right, fellow brand ambassador. I will now make my checklist of 5 things I'm going to be doing. I have to think about this. This is kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I think, I'll just figure out what my 5 things are. But it actually takes a bit of time, doesn't it, to figure out what really it is that you need to do.
I make a master list, and then usually they kind of distill down to, I try to keep it manageable. That's why I always stick with 5.
So you make a list of all the things you want to do, and then you put them into, and then do you check off the list as you go during the year?
I usually check in about when I have some downtime. I usually check in maybe at the 3 or 4 month mark, maybe at the halfway, just to say, okay, how am I doing, and what do I have to kind of prioritize, or where am I slipping? So,
where am I slipping? And I can't wait to play more and get to know you more. So come back and play.
I will.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day. Take care. Bye. So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend Gard. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.